Welcome to the Master of French DVD. The French defense has a very special meaning to me, because as a 4 years old, that was the first opening I've ever learned. How to play against White's king pawn start, e2, e4. It brought to me many very pleasant memories, many won games, and exciting battles. On this DVD, I'd like to share with you my experiences. The French is a very complex, complicated opening. However, on the bright side, it has not that many forceful and long variations as, let's say, the Sicilian or other openings. It is mostly based on understanding of the strategies, of the pawn structures, of plans, and of course knowing the tactical motifs of the opening. Here are some of the famous names who have used the French defense as black year after year successfully: Viktor Korchnoi, Wolfgang Ullmann, Lev Psachis, Boris Gulko, Nigel Short, Alexander Morozevich, and there are many, many more. Hopefully, after watching this DVD, you'll follow them. Okay, let's get started. Here is how the French defense starts. After White plays e2 to e4, and if Black plays e7 to e6, that is called the French defense. So you made your choice, your opponent is already in it. Now we'll first start looking at various other moves than White playing d2, d4, which is by far the most common, most popular response on move 2 for White. The first game I'm going to share with you is a game of my own that I played in the European Girls' Championship back in 1981. And that's how the game continued. d3 and d5 and knight d2, knight f6, knight g2 f3, and here Black has several ways to play. Black can play c5, but I chose to play knight to c6, and actually that's the line I do recommend to play as Black. And here White typically would play g3 to develop the bishop, to g2 to fianchetto, and transpose to a King's Indian attack type of position. And here there is an interesting concept that I like for Black and recommend. Taking on e4, and when the White pawn takes back, kind of making an exception from the rules and moving this e-pawn a second time to e5. Generally, that's not a good thing to do in the opening, because the rule of thumb is do not move the same piece twice until you're fully developed. The reason why in this case Black can do this is because White has played already g2 to g3, and therefore is most likely to develop the bishop to g2, and White will have a blocked pawn on e4. And basically, by Black playing e5, the bishop on g2 will be not so good, because it will be biting in a wall of his own pawn on e4. So basically that's what the whole point for Black is, to block this pawn, make sure it will not move forward to e5. Of course, the other idea of the e6, e5 move is to open up the diagonal of this bishop for the future. So my opponent played actually bishop to g2, and I continued with bishop to c5. My opponent castled, and so did I. And here my opponent played queen e2, while I played queen e7. Both sides are preparing to occupy the only open file, the d file, with our rooks on d1 and d8 respectively. And here White played c3, which is a very typical move in such positions. In fact, even the move earlier instead of the queen move, that's the most standard move for White to play. The idea of white's last move, c3, is to guard the d4 square, so black cannot play knight d4, and also in some cases to play b2, b4. And that explains black's next move, which is a5. Remember this idea. In this pawn structure, in this type of positions, this is almost an automatic. The minute white plays c2, c3, black's answer is a7, a5. So this is what I mean, that it's very important to understand these ideas, these motifs, these typical moves that kind of go hand in hand. c3, black plays a5. I think my opponent was afraid that I may play a4 and then a3, which I'm not sure how quick I would do, but in any rate, she played a2, a4, preventing that idea. And now again, a move that's typical for this pawn structure, b7 to b6, with the purpose to develop the bishop to a6. Now, especially that white's queen is on e2, that's a definitely logical and good idea. Game knight c4, and bishop a6, pinning the knight. From the opening's perspective, I think black can be quite satisfied. Black is fully developed, has no weaknesses. Black has at least equalized, if not more, at this point.